Next, Ryan Reynolds becomes the Green Lantern.
Beware my power. Green Lantern's light!
Meet the man who speaks with horses in Buck.
Rather than helping people with horse problems, I'm helping horses with people problems.
And we meet Jim Carrey's new house guest in Mr. Popper's Penguins.
Your house is full of penguins.
I know!
We're going to fly now.
Fly?
Absolutely.
All right. I can do that.
Join me.
It's the summer of the superheroes, and this week it's the Green Lantern who hits the silver screen. I'm Ignatiy Vishnevetsky of Movie.com.
And I'm Christy Lemire of the Associated Press. We're starting out this week with yet another movie based on a comic book. This time it's Green Lantern, which plays like Top Gun with magical jewelry. Ryan Reynolds stars as Hal Jordan, a brash and cocky test pilot with daddy issues. One day, a spaceship crash lands, and the alien dude inside hands Hal some responsibility he doesn't exactly want.
The ring, it chose you. Take it. Place the ring in the lantern. Place the ring. Speak the oath. Great honor. Responsibility. I don't understand. Hey, breathe. You just gotta breathe, okay?
Hal is now a member of the Green Lantern Corps, a group of intergalactic peacekeepers. The ring allows him to create anything his mind can imagine. But first, he must learn to harness his newfound power.
Brightest day and blackest night. No evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
There is, of course, the obligatory training montage to get Hal into fighting shape. And he doesn't have much time. Although he's the first human to join the Corps, he's the only one who can stop a dastardly force in the universe known as the Parallax, which essentially looks like a giant evil piece of calamari. As you can probably tell from that clip, Green Lantern looks atrocious, especially in 3D. No big shocker there. I should be able to reach out and touch Ryan Reynolds' abs. I mean, they're on display in the first 5 minutes, after all. But instead, the effects just make everything look fake and murky. The other problem is that the mythology here is just so idiotic. Thumbs down.
This movie is joyless. I mean, the Green Lantern, here's this character whose power is that he can, create anything he wants to using his ring. And then they don't really do anything with it. This needs to be handled in a more imaginative way.
Right, 2D or 3D. What they do with the ring, which is a totally stupid idea. Ooh, my ring makes stuff. Totally lame. But anyway, he makes like a racetrack. He makes like a thing to hold up stuff that falls on top of him. This is the best he can do.
They've sort of turned the Green Lantern into the Wonder Twins, I think, in this.
Ooh, but they get water. They get like a bucket of water and a shark or something. That's more fun.
Yeah, and it's in 3D, it's in CGI. You're able to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And this is the best that they can come up with. I like maybe the first 10 minutes of the movie before Ryan Reynolds shows up.
Okay.
When it's still kind of dorky and psychedelic like Thor.
Okay.
But then once, actual human actors are introduced, and mind you, most of them are fairly good in this.
It's a really good cast.
It is a really
Peter
good...
Sarsgaard. You have Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
You have Jeffrey Rush doing the voice of the big talking fish.
But the film has no sense of stakes. It's extremely anticlimactic.
Right.
He essentially fights a parallax, and that's it.
And I like Ryan Reynolds. I think he's sexy and funny and does that young Chevy Chase thing very well. But here, there's no character developed at all, so who cares?
And he seems to take no joy in his powers.
Yeah.
He just
He
sort
doesn't
of...
want him.
Yeah, he just kind of like, oh, I'm Green Lantern now. Okay, well. For the last 40 years, American filmmakers have been making movies about disaffected young men who don't want to be like everybody else, but aren't yet sure who they are themselves. These young men wear vaguely adult clothes like overcoats and suit jackets, and they pine after girls while listening to Leonard Cohen, Paul Simon, or Cat Stevens. The Art of Getting By is one of these movies.
You have made zero effort to turn your career here at Morgan around.
Yes, I did. I mean, I did struggle with it at the beginning, but I just couldn't.
Well, you are out of time.
This particular disaffected young man is George, played by Freddie Highmore. He smokes, sketches, and skips class instead of doing homework. The girl he's pining for is Sally, played by Emma Roberts.
Rule number 3, do something culturally rewarding with your time to earn it morally.
Rule number 4, you're a dork.
Wrong. Rule number 4, noodles.
Noodles?
George and Sally go to the same private high school. On career day, George befriends an alumnus, Dustin, played by Michael Angarano, who becomes a mentor and confidant to George and Sally, though he has some ulterior motives.
You and George should be together, Sally.
We're just friends.
There's no such thing.
I love this song.
Though Highmore and Angarano are both very good in their roles, The Art of Getting By is one crucial fault. The women in this movie aren't characters, they're plot devices. While the men of the film experience existential crisis after existential crisis, all the women seem to do is yearn for stability and make flighty decisions to keep the plot moving. In the end, this comes off as just another sad sack ode to the allure that, cigarettes and Albert Camus have to a very nearsighted kind of young American males.
I'm also thumbs down on it. And Emma Roberts here, who is a good young actress, is a type. She's a pretty and popular girl who is misunderstood and is tired of being pretty and popular. And so the Freddie Highmore character gets her. He keeps talking about how miserable he is and how he hates life, but he keeps saying it. You never actually believe it. And carrying around the stranger like it's a purse doesn't really give us a full character.
And he's seen reading it at the beginning of the school year, and then he's still reading it at the end of the school year.
What
What a slow reader.
And the whole thing with the artist character is also very cliched. I mean, he's going to be a shady and duplicitous dude from the very beginning. Everyone here is a type, not just the women.
Everyone is a type, but I feel like the male actors are maybe given a bit more to work with. I don't really feel like Emma Roberts can work her way out of the character that she's been given, who is so inconsistent. She seems to just be there to create tension between two male characters. She doesn't seem like a person, and neither really does the character of the mother.
Oh, the mom shows up drunk in the middle of the day and hits on him in a negligee. Why? For fun. Okay. Later, Jim Carrey's new dance partners in Mr. Popper's Penguins.
Word.
But first, here's a look at movies now playing in theaters.
You allow a horse to make mistakes. The horse will learn from mistakes no different than the human. But you can't get him to where he dreads making mistakes for fear of what's going to happen after he does.
That's a scene from our next movie, Buck, a documentary about the real-life horse whisperer, the guy who inspired both the novel and the Robert Redford film. Buck Brannaman is a lifelong cowboy whose horrifically abusive childhood gave him an empathy for other creatures, especially horses.
A horse is pretty sensitive. A horse can feel a mosquito land on their butt in a windstorm.
Every movement you make on a horse, there is a perfect position of balance that takes no energy from the horse.
But sometimes he runs into a horse whose behavior is especially unruly, as he does in this dramatic example here, and he finds that the human, not the animal, is to blame.
Maybe there's some things for you to learn about you. That maybe the horses is going to be the only damn way you're going to learn it. Because you might not listen to somebody else. Well, that's all right. Sometimes I don't either, and I should. Ask my wife.
There's that famous line from As Good as It Gets, where Jack Nicholson says to Helen Hunt, "You make me want to be a better man." This is going to sound corny, but Buck made me want to be a better person. He just oozes decency and grace from every pore without ever taking himself too seriously. Director Cindy Meal's film gets a little repetitive in the span of just 88 minutes, but it's such delightful, inspiring subject matter that I didn't mind too much. Thumbs up from me.
This film is unintentionally hilariously campy.
Oh, you're mean. You're soulless.
I'm not mean. Not everything in the world can be reduced to horse-based metaphors.
He's hitting him on the butt with the flag. It's like life. Don't be afraid of the flag on your butt. It's okay.
At one point he says, looking at a horse is like looking at a mirror. what does that even mean?
Near to your soul. I can see the instinctive nature between a person and an animal being reflective of both innate nature. I can see that, the way they connect spiritually.
This like parallelism and this tendency to anthropomorphize the horses is really dangerous.
They have
in some way.
personalities. They have characters. The really dangerous one at the end is unlike any other horse we've seen.
Look, I feel like this would have been a much better film if it had been made by someone who was maybe a little bit less likely to go along with this guy's entire shtick.
Oh, it is worshipful of him. It does teeter on deifying him.
It's a puff piece. This is a puff piece.
He's a good guy. Why not celebrate somebody like this?
He's a good guy who is also kind of boring and who thinks that everything can be related back to horses.
No, he has a family.
Which is constantly being compared to horses. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, watching Oprah is just like riding a horse.
No, he has a very full life. He's a really interesting, complicated guy. And the fact that he took this horrific childhood and turned it into something so
Which he also
positive.
compares to a horse.
He grew up as a cowboy. It's all he knew.
Well, the best thing I can say about our next film is that it's not nearly as dismal as it could have been. Mr. Popper's Penguins is very, very loosely based on the classic children's book, and it stars Jim Carrey as a man who lives in perpetual fear of being defecated upon by one of the 6 penguins he has inherited from his estranged father.
What am I going to do with you?
You are so done!
And when they're not soiling his luxurious Manhattan loft, the penguins are messing with his plan to buy an iconic restaurant from Angela Lansbury, for whom I feel very sorry. But you see, these penguins are here to teach Carrie a lesson about love and family. He's a divorced real estate broker who just doesn't make enough time for his kids. And hey, maybe what he really needs to become a better dad is a half-dozen high-maintenance aquatic birds.
Good night. You too, Loudy.
Bye.
You like Mom.
I do not.
Though there are some funny scenes between Carrie and Clark Gregg, who plays an overzealous zoologist, the penguin shenanigans get old very quickly. And the whole film is baked in the most sentimental kind of schmaltz. Unless you have a child who loves penguins and fart jokes and doesn't mind being bored by a lot of maudlin nonsense, there is no reason you should see this.
Wow, first horses and now penguins. Do you like any creatures at all? Puppies, kittens?
Dogs, I'm okay with dogs,
Right.
certain cats.
Right, but this does not work for you at all. Okay, I have to admit, I'm not that far away from you on this, in that it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but my thumb is still vaguely up. 'Cause here's why. It feels like an old school kind of New York screwball comedy to me. And Jim Carrey...
I cannot even understand how, but please explain. Please explain.
A couple things going on here. Because Jim Carrey has a lot of fun with it, clearly, but it's not nearly as dorky as like when Eddie Murphy does some kind of family comedy, and it's a very transparent attempt at getting to a different audience here. There is still kind of an edge to him that makes it doable. The penguins, they're real live penguins. I mean, sometimes they're CGI penguins, but even then, can you tell the difference between the real penguins and the fake ones? They don't talk, and they're not in 3D.
The penguin effects are all right.
They're pretty good.
But look, this is, you know, it's yet another family movie with this really, what I feel is a really unhealthy fantasy. As a child of divorce, as they say.
Okay.
This kind of recurring plot line you see in a lot of family films where you have 2 divorced parents, and really what they just need to do is get back together.
Go have dinner together or something.
Yeah,
no,
and
that
then
is unfortunate. I will agree with you on that.
It seems like really unhealthy wish fulfillment for a child, frankly.
Right, but most of what's going on here is really kid-friendly. I mean, there were little kids at my screening literally bouncing up and down in their seats. They were so pumped about the penguins. That was intentionally alliterative just now. We're covering it all this week. A green superhero, dancing penguins, the horse whisperer, and now the bride of Frankenstein. Roger's in his office with the latest in his series on the great movies.
If I had to choose a single monster movie, it would have to be The Bride of Frankenstein. Just for one thing, it directly inspired Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. And that has to count for something. This is Bill Curtis speaking for Roger Ebert. The 1935 classic stars Boris Karloff as the monster and Elsa Lanchester as Mary Shelley, who created the fictional Frankenstein and here finds herself part of the story.
The Bride of Frankenstein.
The movie, directed by James Whale, influenced for all time our ideas about mad scientists and their laboratories. Many years later, Mel Brooks found this actual set still in existence and recycled it in his own movie. Bride of Frankenstein doesn't make the mistake of so many later monster movies of making the monster one-dimensional. It has a great deal of sympathy for the lonely and confused creature.
I cannot see and you cannot speak. Is that it? If you understand what I'm saying, put your hand on my shoulder. That is good.
James Whale was a great director who also made the original 1931 Frankenstein and the 1933 classic The Invisible Man. The 1998 movie Gods and Monsters, starring Ian McKellen, was based on his life. The Bride of Frankenstein is one of those movies everyone should see sooner or later. It is available right now for instant streaming on Netflix.
Thanks, Roger. By the way, Bride of Frankenstein is a much better family film than Mr. Popper's Penguins.
Her hair is very penguin-y, though.
Our next film, page one inside the New York Times, looks at the journalists and editors who work on putting together stories for the newspaper's front page. Filmed over the course of 2010, it orbits around a few of the year's big stories and a handful of colorful personalities. One of these is the slouchy, chain-smoking David Carr, a former crack addict who quit drugs and ended up as the media columnist for the Times.
I still had a year left to being the violent, drug-snorting thug before I found my way to this guy, the one with a family and a job at the New York Times.
Now, Carr is a newspaper reporter's newspaper reporter. He seems a world removed from the younger but equally hard-working Brian Stelter, who made his way to the Times out of the blogosphere.
You see him at his desk, and he's got 2 laptops and TVs open, and he's twittering, and he just embodies everything about new media.
I don't know why anybody who's a reporter isn't on Twitter. I constantly berate my colleagues who aren't on it.
The film follows these and other journalists as they investigate, write, rewrite, conduct interviews, drink, complain, worry, maybe write some more, smoke a lot of cigarettes, and just hang out.
You'll be a great war correspondent. You know how they only go for 6 months? They never come back. They just keep going and going and going.
As a study of the modern newspaper, this isn't much. But as a study of modern newspapermen, it's fascinating and revealing. I give it a thumbs up.
My thumb is vaguely down, and you're right, the whole thing could have been and should have been about David Carr, because then it would have been focused. I mean, one of the main things they touch on here is the impetus of the iPad and how that changes the way they convey news. Watching this film kind of feels like reading the New York Times on an iPad. You could touch something here and touch something there, and there's no great momentum building toward anything. There's no great cohesion. It's just little pieces, some of which are compelling, but not all of them. I mean, the Carr takedown of the Tribune Company is fascinating, and watching how that takes shape with negotiations with various editors. But a lot of it's navel-gazing, and I'm the target audience for this. I worked in news for a long time.
I think it's scattershot, but I don't think it's navel-gazing. What do you mean it's navel-gazing?
In that it's very self-important, and it conveys the smugness of the Times. And I think outside of really hardcore news junkies and people who work in our business, I'm not sure who this is useful for.
For me, the tone of the film is often quite desperate. I mean, there's that long section where you see all those people get, voluntarily resign.
Right, there is,
in order
that's
to avoid
unfortunately
getting laid off.
happening in our business, right? All the buyouts and the layoffs. It's very unfortunate. But it encompasses that and so much else that it feels kind of unwieldy to me.
I will give you that it's a little bit unwieldy, but the material just following around Carr is so strong. I don't know where you see the smugness. I didn't see anything smug about it whatsoever.
And it feels like, oh, we're the New York Times and we're going to survive no matter what.
Looks like somebody has a problem with the New York Times.
Oh, not me. Okay, hi. Now it's time for our Hot and Now segment, where we take a look at some movies that are on demand or on DVD. My pick this week is The Perfect Host, a sly, twisty little thriller. David Hyde Pierce stars, unsurprisingly, as a sophisticated, genteel bachelor getting ready to host a dinner party. But a stranger shows up at the front door of his Hollywood Hills home, a bank robber on the run, played by Clayne Crawford. He talks his way in by pretending to be a friend of a friend.
It's just odd she didn't mention you at all.
Well, I hope she mentions me the next time you guys talk.
You know, you're right. Let's give her a call. I'll get the phone. I'm sure Julia would love to know we're both here together.
But neither of these men is exactly who he seems. Pierce seems to be having a really good time here, toying with his persnickety image. And Crawford keeps you guessing as a guy who's as dangerous as he is good looking. It's available now through video on demand. It'll be in theaters starting July 1st.
My pick for Hot and Now this week is In the City of Sylvia. It's one of my favorite films the last few years, and it's finally out on DVD. A young man is visiting the city of Strasbourg in northern France. There, many years earlier, he met a woman named Sylvia, and he hopes to meet her again. That's the gist of the setup for a film that manages to lucidly touch on longing, city life, desire, imagination, voyeurism, youth, memory, and ultimately the act of looking itself, something it accomplishes with barely any dialogue. At once understated and romantic, In the City of Sylvia is a symphony of glances, faces, alleyways, and city breezes. It manages to convey something intangible with poetic clarity. It's available on DVD. I'd recommend also checking out the special features, which include another film about the same subject by writer-director Jose Luis Guerin.
The first review of Martin Scorsese's first feature, Who's That Knocking at My Door?, was written way back in 1967. By some young pup named Roger Ebert. Our contributor, Cartina Richardson, takes a look at her favorite scene from that movie.
In 1967, Martin Scorsese directed his first feature film, Who's That Knocking at My Door? Now, we all love Goodfellas, Raging Bull, and Taxi Driver, but this lesser-known Scorsese movie has a few gems of its own. Who's That Knocking at My Door is about young, aimless, rambunctious men. One of these men, JR, played by Harvey Keitel in his very first role, discovers the girl he wants to marry has once been raped. He struggles with intense Catholic guilt while deciding to continue or end the relationship. Now, the film isn't the most polished movie, but as Scorsese's first feature, it shouldn't be. At times, it's more concerned with style and showcasing good music, but that's exactly why I like it. Sometimes I want to see shots that thrill me in a simple but powerful way. I need to see three men in dark suits and skinny ties listening to doo-wop and know immediately this is supposed to be really cool. And it is.
Just a little bit louder.
How much louder can I make the radio for crying out loud? It's loud enough. It's loud enough. You can hear it in China.
You're yelling like over here.
Now, don't worry about my yelling.
But in this film, there is a scene that makes my heart and brain explode with excitement every time I see it. The scene itself is simple and without dialogue. JR and his friends have a boys' night. They drink, they laugh, they smoke, and they play with a gun. The sequence consists of long, slow-motion tracking shots from left to right that dissolve into one another. Accompanying this throbbing camera work is the equally pulsating song El Watusi by Ray Barretto. Scorsese understands music. He can find a song's secret brightness or darkness and apply it magically to a scene. The Ronettes' Be My Baby, for example, has a sound and a rhythm for starting things, just as Junior Walker's Shotgun breaks the spell of the slow-motion sequence. El Watusi, on the other hand, is not a song for beginnings. Both the song and the scene have a languid energy, a steady sleepiness that undercuts the excitement. This undercutting mirrors the frustration that the men have in their lives. They're bursting with energy, but they have nowhere to direct it. Maybe this is one reason the scene creates such an intense reaction. We feel this frustration too. We want to bolt into the scene, to be part of the excitement, to reach out and grab Harvey Keitel's hair, to have fun behind the heavy slow-motion curtain. But the scene never lets us. We're in a constant state of wanting, doomed to spend the rest of our lives fantasizing about one of the simplest, most exciting movie scenes of all time.
Okay, thank you so much, Cartina. And that's very cool. Looking back, Roger discovered him.
Okay, recapping the films on this week's show. 2 thumbs down on Green Lantern. 2 more thumbs down for The Art of Getting By.
And then the disagreements began. I'm up on Buck. Ignatiy is down. I'm up on Mr. Popper's Penguins. Ignatiy is down again. And then I'm down on page 1 inside the New York Times. Ignatiy is up on this one.
Join us next week for a review of Disney Pixar's Cars 2.
Finn McMissile, British intelligence.
So mighty, average intelligence.
Plus a look at Coco, warts and all, in Conan O'Brien Can't Stop.
Everyone give me some room. Get these people back.
Also, don't forget that you can join the discussion on Facebook and Twitter. Until then, the balcony is closed.
The Truman Show is heartfelt and poignant and sometimes funny, and it has a great performance by Jim Carrey, who we think of as kind of a manic slapstick comedian, but here he's very controlled in a dramatic performance. The movie asks the question, as we head for the millennium, is technology shaping our lives simply because it can? I give The Truman Show 4 stars, and I'm Roger Ebert.
For more reviews and more from Roger's office, visit our website at ebertpresents.com.